They say if a voice calls you from the tree line after dark up in Sutton's Draw, you don't answer, and you don't open, no matter whose voice it wears. Because the mountain learns the sound of the ones you love. It was the deep winter of an old year, the kind where the snow comes down past your knees and the light goes gray by 4 in the afternoon. Up in that hollow, there was a plank cabin, small, built board by a man's own hands, and inside it, alone, was a boy. Elias, no more than 12. He was banking the wood stove low, because the wood was running short, and he knew he had to make it last. He was up there to hold the line. The old trapper had walked out for supplies, 2 days there and back, and left the boy to mind the traps. The old trapper, Cobb Renner. Before he went, he stopped at the door and set down one rule, plain and slow, the way you'd tell a child something that might one day keep him alive. If a voice calls you from the tree line after dark, you don't answer. You don't open, no matter whose voice it wears. Elias said he understood. He didn't. Not yet. Cobb looked at him a long moment. Then he said it. The mountain listens. It waits out there by the tree line, and it takes down the sounds you love, the way a mockingbird steals a song and sings it back at you in the dark. Now the Renners and the folks up that way were steady people, God-fearing, quiet, kept to themselves and kept their word. The trapline ran 2 miles up the draw, set after set, and a boy could walk it and feel like the only soul in the world. There was one thing that boy carried whole. His mother had passed the spring before, and her voice, soft, tired at the end of a day, was the one sound he still held clear in his head. You'd have believed you'd know that voice anywhere. That's the trouble. So would he. First night, something scratched at the porch boards, low, slow, like a dog that won't come in. Elias told himself it was nothing. Keep your door shut a while and listen close, because the mountain already is. 3 slow raps came on the door in the black of the second night, and come morning, there wasn't a single track in the fresh snow around that cabin, not one. Elias stood over that unbroken white a long while, and that was the morning old Hetty Combs snowshoed in from the next holler over to check on the boy. She came across the ridge slow, breath hanging in the cold, brushing the snow off her shoulders on the porch, and when she looked at his face, she stopped brushing. She'd seen that look before. She knew, plain as day, that something had already been at the door. She sat him down by the low stove and told him about her brother. Went out to a voice in this same draw, 30 years back, and never came home. Walked right off the porch into the dark toward somebody calling him, and the mountain kept him. They say Hetty found his lantern in the snow the next spring, still standing upright, wick burned clean to nothing. 30 years, and she still won't walk that draw after dark. You'd do well to hear why. Then she gave him the only counsel worth giving. Burn a lamp in the window, she said, and keep the latch dropped, no matter what you hear. Not who, what. Because the mountain listens, she told him. It waits by the tree line, patient as stone, and it takes the voices you love and keeps them. It'll wear whoever it needs to get you to lift that latch. She left before dark. Wouldn't stay past it. And the boy was alone again, truly alone now, with a lamp lit in the window just like she said, and a fear in him that hadn't been there that morning. The third night, the snow came down so deep, the whole world went quiet. No wind, no owl, not a branch cracking under the weight of it, just the hiss of falling snow, and then not even that. A silence so complete you could hear your own blood. And into that silence came a voice, from just past the woodpile. His mother, calling his name, warm and tired, the way she sounded when supper was on the table and the day was done. And if you'd been that boy, cold and grieving and 12, tell me true, would your hand have stayed off the latch? Elias stood with his hand on that latch, every part of him wanting to lift it, until he remembered one small thing his mother did that this voice could not know. She never once called him Elias. She called him by a name only the two of them ever used. The voice went quiet. Elias stood there with his ear near the wood, breath held, and for a long moment there was nothing out past the woodpile but snow coming down. Then it tried. It said a name. Wrong. It said another. Wrong again. Warm and tired, the way she used to sound with supper on, but grabbing in the dark for a thing it did not have. His mother never called him Elias. She called him by a pet name only the two of them ever knew, and this voice guessed and never touched it, and then it stopped pretending to be her. It reached deeper. It came back in his father's voice, low and sure, telling him to open up, son. Then it was Hetty Combs, kind and croaking, saying she'd snowshoed all this way, let her in from the cold. Then it was Cobb Renner himself, gruff, telling the boy to quit being a fool and lift the latch. The voice cycled through his father's, Hetty's and Cobb's voices in the same throat, one after another, stacked and hungry, all of them coming from that one spot past the woodpile. Everyone he'd ever loved, calling at once, from one throat. Sit with that a moment. The thing had learned them all. Elias dropped to the floor by the stove. He pulled his knees up small. The lamp still burned in the window, low and steady, and the latch stayed down. Every voice he loved knocked on the wood, and he did not answer. Not once. Not through his father, not through Cobb, not through his mother when it circled back to her. He lay there in the dark by the dying coals, and he held, all the long way to gray light. Come morning, the snow had stopped. Cobb Renner walked back up the draw at first light, and he found the boy alive. But it was the snow around the cabin that stayed with Cobb. Prince, something that walked on 2 feet, but set them down like a deer, soft and careful, circling the porch, going up close to the door, then fading off toward the tree line where the fog sat between the trunks. They say Cobb never left a boy alone on that line again, and the tale got handed down, quiet, whenever a child was old enough to walk a trapline of his own. Don't answer if it uses your mother's voice. Remember what the mountain can wear to get you to open the door. The mountain doesn't just watch you. It listens, and it learns, and it waits by the tree line for the one night you forget.